Hola amiga, and welcome back to the Latina Leadership Podcast, the podcast for Latinas by Latinas, where every week we have real conversations about the issues and topics that matter most to our community. Topics like education, health and wellness, entrepreneurship, pay equity, and so much more. Get comfortable. We're bringing you another inspiring episode starting right now. Enjoy the show.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Latina Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Anjelica. On today's episode, we have Celeste Gomez. As usual, I give every interviewee an opportunity to say who they are and what you do. So, Celeste, who are you and what do you do?
Hi, my name is Celeste. I'm an author and poet. I have a book that was published in 2022, so it has been 2 years since it's been published. I'm working on my second book as well as working on my book tour. So writing is a really big part of my life and a big part of my career.
Is that what you do your day-to-day, or do you have a different job for your day-to-day?
Yeah, so I do have a day-to-day full-time job. So I work in sales for Mija Books. So that's M-I-J Books, so Mija Books. They're a multicultural, multilingual book fair provider. So it's really cool because I get to be involved in books and like literature in my day-to-day. And then after that, I go into like poetry. So still in the realm of literature and writing and being in the whole area. So
What was life like in California for you, and are you still there?
yeah, so I still live in California, and life in California um was evolving for me. And what I mean by that is because I grew up in Los Angeles, so in the Pico Rivera, Norwalk area. Primarily, I consider Pico my home because I went to the schools in the Norwalk area. But I grew up in Pico, and I had a single mother trying to raise my sibling and I. So just navigating through that and navigating through school, because school was very hard for me, especially English. So it was just always really hard for me, and I've always wanted to strive to write a book, whether it would be like a fiction novel, my book is a poetry book, or a poetry book. I knew I've always wanted to do something with writing, and it really helped me, especially growing up, because living in Pico Rivera, it was hard because, my mom, even though she was a single parent majority of the time, she was also sick. She had an illness called scleroderma. So having to navigate through that and be a parent, it's not easy. So writing really helped evolve me to who I am today.
So you mentioned that you wanted to write a book, but English was difficult for you. English as in the second language, or English as in the subject?
As the subject.
Okay.
Yeah. It was, I get this question all the time. It was just hard because I did not understand the conjunctions or the sentence structures or the like writing an essay correctly, because of all the things we had to like read in school. It was hard for me to really grasp and understand it. And I received a lot of tutoring throughout school and even in college too. It was really hard because I got placed in a class for English as a second language. And I had a really great professor who really worked with me to not only like pass the class, but reminded me of why I was here in school and why I chose the major that I chose, because I chose creative writing, ironically enough. Um, and I appreciated creative writing and poetry because it allowed me to break rules compared to, traditional English writing and the papers. So I was rebellious when it came to English. So,
Um, you know, I mentioned that because as I'm reading, I usually, um, those who help me and those who you usually communicate with help me put together kind of like an information sheet. So we get to learn who you are, what you do. We do a little bit of research on you before we talk to you.
yeah.
Um, and as I'm reading through it and as I've read through it, I'm looking at it and you seem to struggle with the same things I've struggled. It being OCD, it coming from a one parent household. Um, what isn't on here, because it would be like parallel to like what my upbringing in life was for me, is that I was no, you can tell, dyslexic. And even though I am dyslexic, it doesn't go away. I still manage. And public speaking for me was like my creative outlet when it came to like the language, right? It's not so much writing. I write the way I speak. That's just how I know how to do things. And
Right.
I can probably write a little bit of technical things with like emails and so on and so forth. But I had professor also in English who helped me tremendously. And I mean, I passed her class with like through barely. I mean, I barely passed it, but I couldn't help but to write her a letter thanking her for all that she endured, struggling. I can't imagine struggling with people who don't know how to do what for me felt like basic writing. She's like, okay, you're not, how can I teach you this if you're not grasping this, right? But outside of that, I also had an English teacher who was in high school who also kind of let me break the rules. And this man can write so beautifully, can express in words in ways that I would never be able to, but when you talk to him, he's he's just like everybody else, he's just like everyone. But when he writes, you're like, no, you can tell he's an English um teacher and he has been teaching English for the last 30 plus years. I say all of that to say this, that even though you struggled with English and even though you had a really hard time, and probably even sometimes now it's still difficult, right? Because you mentioned
Yeah.
creative writing. What is it that sustains you? Is it that you want people to read what you write, or is it your story that you?
It's a mix of both because I know that everyone has an important story to share. And I think it's super important to not only write it, but allow it to resonate with others who may be struggling with that same um, instance or same similar issue. And when they see, especially if they see a person of color write about it and talk about the challenges, they feel connected and they feel represented. And I think that's super important, especially when you had mentioned um, about how I have OCD, and I do. And um, to be someone to discuss this and also show that, I live a normal life is really important to me because I feel that many people stereotype OCD. And so I want to show them, there's different, it affects everyone differently.
Mhm.
So,
It does. OCD does affect everybody differently. I didn't know I had OCD until later. I thought it was behavioral, and it is behavioral. Yes, it is. That's part of it. But my OCD is called pure obsession. I don't necessarily have I guess I don't know like repetitive
yeah.
things physical, but I have repetitive things like thoughts. So I can completely lose myself in a thought where I'm unaware that I'm thinking that thing over and over and over and over and over. And not because and it can be basic things. It can be something somebody said. It can be, I can obsess over a person. And not because that sounds weird and so out of place. How are you obsessing over a person, over a phrase, or something somebody said? How are you? But also, there's a lot of ups to my OCD in which I do move on faster. I don't hold on to those things, and but they can bother me. But then I move on, and I understand that that's part of my OCD. That I don't mean to be like that. I don't mean to like push people aside. It's just I don't know how to move on if I don't.
Right.
Yeah, and so sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, no. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna mention
Oh.
your OCD. Because I want to know about it a little bit, because this is the first time I come across somebody who also has OCD and who's Mexicana and who's, Latina.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really interesting how you were explaining your experience, because as an adult now, I feel it's a lot more in my thoughts, especially when I want to work on something and really perfect that. Um, because back then when I was younger, and I have a poem explaining about it too. Um, I did obsess over having to wash my hands. And that was one of the really hardest things, because I didn't understand why I acted like that. Like, I was scared to get dirty. I had to wash my hands like 10 times a day. And in the restroom, I remember we were like getting books, and I just didn't understand, because growing up, other kids like that were near me did not do that. And, they were okay to get, on the playground to get rough and dirty. And I just did not like want to do that. And one of the cool things that my mom did was that she gave me like a personalized hand sanitizer. So it made me feel special about it. Um, what was another thing? I also used to count my food, making sure that everything was there. And I don't know why, but I used to do that growing up in elementary and middle school. Um, and I used to, like, if I didn't do it, it would throw my day off. And I don't know why I did that. And it's interesting to see that change, because I don't do that now. Um, uh, I'm glad to say that I'm okay with, like, dirty, like getting like dirty in the dirt and everything. But now it has transpired into my thoughts, just thinking like, is this person going to like me? What are they thinking? I overthink all the time, over analyzing a situation as well, until I have to get off my chest and let them know, like, hey, yeah, this is what I'm feeling, and I feel like I apologize all the time, and I shouldn't have to, but it just happens. And so it's just interesting to see the change from child to adulthood.
Yeah.
Especially when working in my full-time job, because I feel like I have to put this mask and be like, okay, I know what I'm saying, like I know what I'm doing. And there's still that little girl in me just thinking like, can I do it? Do I deserve to be here? So
It's funny you say that, because I just did that. I talked to somebody about something they did a year ago.
yeah.
And they're still in my life, and I was like, you can't be in my life unless I tell you this.
Yeah.
Going to bother me, and I'm gonna overanalyze everything, and this is how I am. And sometimes some people do understand and some people don't understand. Some people are okay with it and some people aren't. There's times and days that my family or my husband or my son are okay with it, and there's other times they don't know how to deal with it, right? I'm obsessed with smells. That's just one of my things. It is what it is. And I will over I will overdo it when it comes to smells. Like, if I smell something that I don't like, I have to get rid of it. And sometimes it's embedded into things that I can't. And if it's embedded into like a sofa, I have to get rid of the sofa. Like, it has to go, right? But I have these quirks, I like to call them, that I don't know how to control, right? But one of the things that we can control is, or at least we try to, is how we react to things. And the fact that you're reacting, or the fact that you're letting a lot of what you do out, is by writing this book. So let's talk about the book. It's called Besos.
Yes.
What are these poems about, and what is the book about? Who is it dedicated to?
Wow. Because I feel like with Besos, when I started writing it, I was in college. And so, it's a poetry collection, and I have the dedication to my mom, because my mom was the biggest supporter. Unfortunately, she did pass away, so that's also discussed in the book about just navigating how to grieve, navigating a grief of a relationship as well, and leaving a relationship, and just talking about my womanhood from child to being a woman now. And so that's the main gist of what Besos is about. And I named it Besos because I always thought when it came to like a kiss, it can be a positive or negative experience. Like, let's be real.
But yeah.
So I feel that Besos was just like a good title to kind of express all of that. So
the book was released after your mom's death?
No, it was released in 2022 because my mom had passed away when I was 18.
Oh, okay.
So so it was
Okay.
in 2022. I started working on it during college. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, there's a lot of parallels, and I can't help but addicted, because I didn't start this podcast and this journey after my sister passed away. My sister, that was above me by 2 years, a death, and especially someone, and she's the only sister that like was 2 years older than me, and I had sisters who were 12, 10 years older than me, so they didn't live the same life we did, and me and my sister did. And so, when I lost her, I lost a lot of memories were gone with her, because things that I couldn't remember, she could like just spill off the back of her head. And for me now, they're just memories that I can't confirm. And so after her death, I started to, things just started to happen in your life. Things just start to, you don't hold back anymore. And so you mentioned you mentioned that you didn't hold back when it came to a lot of the things you wrote in Besos. Why is that? Is it to be honest with yourself? I mean,
Yeah.
mhm.
I think it's because to be honest with myself and to give that little girl inside the healing that she deserved, because I held so many things back for such a long time. And I was shy for such a long time. So I just wanted to just be honest, and to see, if whatever happens, happens. And that's kind of the approach I went with it. And since writing, especially in my college years, it helped me so much. I just was like, I have nothing to lose by being just honest and authentic. And I think that's what makes poetry a lot more beautiful.
Yeah, you're right. You're
Yep.
absolutely right. So when it comes to the book itself, what is it that you want to leave, or what impression would you like, or what? Because it's creative writing, and sometimes the reader or the viewer of whatever art it is, it's their interpretation, right? But
Yep.
for you, what impact is it that you want to make on the reader?
I just want the reader to know that they're strong enough to leave a bad relationship, whether it's intimate relationship or familial or even a friendship. They're strong enough to do that.
Friendship breaks up us hard. I've had that conversation before. That's not easy.
It's not.
Sometimes it's even harder than like a a boy break, like a, well, you know, romantic partner breakup, it's not easy at all.
No.
It's not. Thank you for actually mentioning that. And thank you for like being able to talk about it in the book within itself when it comes to that. When it comes to creative writing, say I'm a young Latina, say you're 18, 17-year-old Celeste. The world is opening up to you and you do want to do this creative writing. What advice would you give to her to continue to push that, or even to be like, you know what, just publish what you wrote already?
I would tell her to like not be scared and to be confident in who you are, because um your mama raised you to be strong. Like she raised you to be strong, and really lean on connection and build connection, because that's one of the things when it comes to being an artist and a writer. You have to build connection and network. And I feel like that really, when you have a community to lean on, it really helps, and it motivates you to do your passion. And I would just also I would give her a hug and just remind her that whatever she's feeling, it's valid, because 17, 18-year-old me, you know, thought way differently than me being 26 now. So completely different.
Thank you. Um, what's next and what's on the horizon for Celeste?
Yeah, so I'm working on book 2. I had announced that on my socials. So working on book 2, and I'm also working on my book tour, which will be in 2025. So I'll be releasing that information, and I'm super excited because not only is poetry very beautiful when written, but it's such a beautiful experience when you see spoken word and you actually hear it and you see the emotion. So those are the two things that I'm working on right now.
Well, we truly, truly, truly believe in all that you're doing. But before I let you go, there's always a question that I ask everybody who comes to the podcast, which is, do you consider yourself a leader? Why or why not?
I don't know. I think it depends on the day. Because I feel like I would like to be a leader to those who want to lean on me for direction when it comes to doing poetry and just being yourself and just chasing your dreams. But then I also love to be a learner and learn from leaders. So I would say 50-50, because there's some moments in my life where I feel like, you know, that I am a leader, and then there's some where I just want to be a learner. So
we greatly appreciate that. And we wish you all the luck, and know that the podcast here supports you completely at whatever it is you need and whatever it is that you're doing, Celeste. Gracias mucho for coming on here and having a quick conversation with me. We'll reach back out to you when that second book is released and when you're on book tour, so we can release your dates also.
Thank you for joining us on the Latina Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with your amigas, comadres, hermanas, your mom, your tias, or anyone who you think would enjoy the conversation. The Latina Leadership Podcast is a weekly video and audio podcast since 2020. Visit our online Latina Leaders Directory, join our growing community of Latina changemakers, keep up with our calendar of events, or reach out to us if you're interested in supporting the Latina Leadership Podcast by visiting our website at latinaleadershippodcast.com. And with that, we'll see you next time.